Stop expecting from people and you will begin to feel a peace you have been searching for so long. My beloved brothers and sisters, much of our pain does not come from what people do, but from what we expect them to do. We expect understanding, loyalty, care and appreciation. And when those expectations are not met, the heart feels heavy and disappointed. But Allah never asked you to attach your happiness to people. He asked you to attach your heart to Him. When you shift your expectations from people to Allah, something changes inside you. You stop feeling constantly hurt and you begin to feel calm. You realize that people are limited, but Allah is not. And true happiness begins when your heart depends only on the one who never fails you. Expectations from people often lead to disappointment. Many people spend a large part of their lives feeling hurt without fully understanding the source of that pain. It is not always what people say or do that breaks the heart, but what we expected them to say or do. We expect understanding without explanation, loyalty without weakness, and care without inconsistency. But my dear brothers and sisters, human beings are not perfect. They forget, they change, and sometimes they fall short without even realizing it. When your heart is attached to these expectations, every small disappointment feels heavy. But when you begin to understand that people are limited, your heart starts to feel lighter. You stop expecting perfection from imperfect beings, and that shift itself becomes a source of peace. One of the most common reasons for emotional pain is silent expectation. You expect someone to check on you, to understand your silence, or to appreciate your efforts without you expressing your needs. When that does not happen, you feel ignored or unimportant. But the truth is, people are not always aware of what you are going through. They are dealing with their own struggles, their own thoughts, and their own distractions. When you expect others to read your heart without communication, disappointment becomes almost certain. Islam teaches us to be fair in our expectations and to remember that only Allah knows what is hidden within us completely. Sometimes the heart becomes attached to a person in a way that makes their actions control your emotions. If they respond well, you feel happy. If they change or distance themselves, you feel broken. This is a dangerous place for the heart to be. Allah did not create you to be emotionally dependent on people. He created you to rely on Him. When your happiness is tied to people, it becomes unstable. But when your heart depends on Allah, you find a peace that does not change with people's behavior. Another important reality is that people give according to their capacity, not according to your expectations. You may give your time, your care, and your loyalty fully, expecting the same in return. But not everyone has the same level of understanding or emotional ability. When you expect others to match your level of sincerity, you set yourself up for disappointment. Accepting that people are different helps protect your heart from unnecessary pain. Expectations also create pressure in relationships. When you expect too much from someone, you may unintentionally burden them. This pressure can lead to distance or misunderstanding. A relationship built on high expectations often becomes fragile. But when expectations are reduced, relationships become more natural and peaceful. You begin to appreciate what people do instead of focusing on what they do not do. The believer understands that true reliance should only be on Allah. When you expect from Allah instead of people, your heart becomes calm. Allah never forgets, never disappoints, and never fails to understand your situation. Turning your expectations toward Him changes your emotional state completely. Another lesson to reflect on is that disappointment can sometimes be a form of guidance. When people fail to meet your expectations, it reminds you not to depend on them completely. It redirects your heart back to Allah, where true security lies. This shift protects you from deeper emotional pain in the future. Overthinking often increases disappointment. You replay situations in your mind, thinking about what someone should have done differently. This only increases emotional stress. But when you reduce expectations, overthinking decreases. You begin to accept situations as they are instead of creating unnecessary mental pressure. Letting go of expectations does not mean you stop caring about people. It means you care without attaching your peace to their actions. You treat others with kindness and sincerity, but you do not allow their behavior to control your emotions. This balance brings emotional strength. When expectations are lowered, appreciation increases. You begin to notice the small good things people do instead of focusing on what they did not do. This shift in perspective creates a more positive and peaceful mindset. Another beautiful result of reducing expectations is inner freedom. You are no longer waiting for people to act in a certain way to feel okay. Your peace comes from within, supported by your connection with Allah. This independence brings strength to your heart. Expectations from people often lead to disappointment, but when you shift your reliance to Allah, everything changes. The believer who understands this begins to live with a calm heart, free from constant emotional hurt. When you depend on Allah, you find a peace that people cannot give and cannot take away. People are limited, but Allah is unlimited. There is a deep lesson every believer must learn in order to protect their heart. People are limited, but Allah is unlimited. Human beings, no matter how good they are, will always have weaknesses. They forget, they get tired, they misunderstand, and sometimes they disappoint without intending to. When you expect people to fulfill every emotional need, your heart becomes vulnerable to constant hurt. But when you understand that only Allah is perfect, your expectations begin to shift. You no longer rely on people for what only Allah can give, and in that shift, your heart begins to feel a new kind of peace. People can love you, but their love is not perfect. They may care about you, but they may not always show it in the way you expect. They may support you at times, but they cannot always be present in every moment of your life. This is not because they do not value you, but because they are human. When you accept this reality, you stop taking everything personally. You begin to understand that people give according to their ability, not according to your expectations. Allah, on the other hand, is unlimited in His mercy, His knowledge, and His care. He knows what is in your heart even when you cannot express it. He understands your silent pain, your hidden fears, and your deepest hopes. While people may misunderstand you, Allah never does. This understanding brings comfort that no human relationship can fully provide. When your heart depends on people, it becomes unstable. Your emotions rise and fall based on their actions. If they are kind, you feel happy. If they change or distance themselves, you feel hurt. But when your heart depends on Allah, it becomes steady. Your peace is no longer controlled by people's behavior. It comes from a deeper connection that remains constant. Another important reflection is that people cannot always give you closure. Sometimes you will not get the explanation you hoped for or the apology you expected. This can leave the heart feeling confused. But when you turn to Allah, you realize that you do not need every answer from people. Allah knows the truth of every situation, and that knowledge is enough to bring calmness to your heart. Trusting Allah also reduces emotional pressure. When you expect too much from people, relationships become heavy and complicated. But when you rely on Allah, you interact with people in a more balanced way. You appreciate them without depending on them completely. The believer understands that Allah's provision is unlimited. What people fail to give you, Allah can replace with something better. If someone leaves your life, Allah can bring someone more beneficial. If someone disappoints you, Allah can give you peace that removes that pain. Another beautiful aspect of relying on Allah is that He is always present. People may be busy, distracted, or unavailable, but Allah is always near. You can turn to Him at any time, in any state, and He will listen. This constant availability is a source of great comfort. When you truly understand that Allah is unlimited, you begin to stop chasing people for validation. You no longer need constant approval or attention to feel valued. Your worth comes from your connection with Allah, not from people's opinions. This understanding also helps you forgive people more easily. When you realize that they are limited, you stop expecting perfection from them. You accept their weaknesses and move forward with a lighter heart. Your dua becomes stronger when you rely on Allah. Instead of expecting people to solve your problems, you turn to the one who controls every outcome. This shift brings both strength and peace to your heart. People are limited, but Allah is unlimited. When you place your trust in Him, your heart becomes calm, your expectations become balanced, and your life becomes more peaceful. The believer who understands this truth begins to live with quiet strength, knowing that Allah will always provide what is best. Happiness comes from within, not from others. Many people spend years searching for happiness in other people, believing that someone else will complete them or bring them peace. They think that if others treat them well, appreciate them, or stay close to them, then they will feel happy. But my dear brothers and sisters, this kind of happiness is unstable. It depends on people, and people change. Islam teaches us something deeper. True happiness does not come from others, it comes from within, and it grows through your connection with Allah. When your heart is connected to the one who never changes, your peace becomes steady and lasting. When happiness is tied to people, it becomes fragile. A small change in someone's behavior can affect your mood, your thoughts, and your sense of worth. If someone ignores you, you feel hurt. If they distance themselves, you feel empty. This emotional dependence can quietly drain your energy. But when happiness comes from within, it is not easily shaken. It becomes something rooted in your faith, not in people's actions. True inner happiness begins when your heart finds contentment with Allah. It comes from knowing that Allah understands you completely, even when no one else does. It comes from trusting that whatever happens in your life is part of His plan. This trust brings a calmness that people cannot give you. Another important reality is that people cannot carry your emotional weight fully. They have their own struggles, their own worries, and their own limitations. Expecting them to constantly fulfill your emotional needs creates pressure and leads to disappointment. But Allah never becomes tired of listening to you, and He never becomes overwhelmed by your problems. Inner happiness is also connected to self-respect. When you stop depending on people for validation, you begin to value yourself more. You no longer chase attention or approval. Instead, you focus on improving yourself and strengthening your relationship with Allah. This brings a quiet confidence to the heart. Gratitude plays a powerful role in developing inner happiness. When you focus on what you have instead of what you lack, your perspective changes. You begin to see blessings in places you once overlooked. This gratitude strengthens your connection with Allah and fills your heart with peace. Another beautiful aspect of inner happiness is that it reduces overthinking. When your peace is not dependent on people, you stop analyzing their behavior constantly. You no longer question your worth based on how others treat you. This brings mental calmness. The believer understands that happiness is not the absence of problems. Life will always include tests and challenges, but inner happiness allows you to face those challenges with strength and patience. It comes from trusting that Allah is always with you. When you develop inner happiness, your relationships also improve. You no longer approach people with heavy expectations. You appreciate them for who they are without depending on them for your peace. This creates healthier and more balanced connections. Inner happiness also protects your heart from disappointment. When people fail to meet your expectations, you do not feel broken. You remain calm because your peace is not tied to them. This emotional stability is a blessing. Spending time in remembrance of Allah strengthens this inner peace. Dhikr, dua, and reflection bring the heart closer to its source of calmness. The more you connect with Allah, the more your heart feels complete. Happiness truly comes from within, not from others. When your heart depends on Allah, you find a peace that does not change with people's actions. The believer who understands this begins to live with quiet strength, calmness, and contentment, knowing that true happiness is found in the remembrance of Allah. Trusting Allah brings emotional stability. There is a deep calm that enters the heart when a person truly learns to trust Allah. Many of our emotional struggles come from trying to control what we cannot control, worrying about outcomes and fearing what may happen next. But when you place your trust in Allah, you begin to understand that your life is in the hands of the one who is all-wise and all-merciful. My dear brothers and sisters, emotional stability is not found in having a perfect life, but in having a heart that relies on Allah in every situation. When you trust Allah, you stop feeling overwhelmed by uncertainty. You begin to accept that not everything will go according to your plan, but everything will go according to Allah's plan. This shift in thinking brings a sense of relief. You no longer carry the burden of trying to control every outcome. Instead, you focus on doing your best and leaving the rest to Allah. One of the biggest causes of emotional instability is overthinking. You constantly replay situations, worry about the future, and imagine outcomes that may never happen. But when you trust Allah, overthinking begins to decrease. You remind yourself that Allah knows what you do not know, and that He will guide you through what lies ahead. Trusting Allah also brings patience. When things do not happen as quickly as you want, you do not become frustrated. You understand that delay is not denial. Allah may be preparing something better for you or protecting you from something harmful. This understanding calms the heart. Another important aspect is that trust in Allah removes excessive dependence on people. When your emotional stability depends on others, it becomes fragile. But when it depends on Allah, it becomes strong. You interact with people with kindness, but your peace does not depend on them. When you trust Allah, you also find strength during hardship. Life will always have challenges, but trust allows you to face those challenges with resilience. You know that every difficulty has a purpose and that Allah will never burden you beyond what you can handle. Dua becomes more meaningful when you trust Allah. You speak to Him with sincerity, knowing that He hears you and will respond in the best way. Even if the answer is delayed, your heart remains calm because you trust His wisdom. Trusting Allah also helps you let go of past pain. Instead of holding on to hurt or regret, you accept that everything happened by Allah's will. This acceptance allows your heart to heal and move forward. Emotional stability also comes from remembering that Allah is always near. In moments when you feel alone, you remind yourself that Allah is with you. This awareness removes the feeling of isolation. When you trust Allah, you begin to focus on what you can control. You improve your actions, your intentions, and your relationship with Allah while leaving the results to Him. This balance creates peace. Gratitude grows naturally when you trust Allah. You begin to appreciate what you have instead of constantly worrying about what you do not have. This shift in focus brings emotional calmness. Trusting Allah brings emotional stability because it places your heart in the safest place. The believer who truly relies on Allah finds a peace that is not shaken by life's ups and downs. When your trust is in Allah, your heart becomes steady, calm, and at ease no matter what you face. Detachment protects your inner peace. Many of the wounds we carry are not caused by people alone, but by how tightly we attach our hearts to them. When your heart becomes overly attached, every change in their behavior feels like a loss. My dear brothers and sisters, detachment does not mean you stop caring, but it means you stop depending on people for your peace. When you learn to detach in a healthy way, you begin to protect your inner calm from being disturbed by things you cannot control. This is a powerful step toward emotional strength. Attachment often creates expectations, and expectations lead to disappointment. You begin to expect constant attention, understanding, and loyalty, and when these are not met, your heart feels heavy. But when you detach, you remove these heavy expectations. You allow people to be who they are without tying your happiness to their actions. This brings a quiet relief to your heart. Detachment also reduces emotional pain. When someone changes or leaves, it does not break you in the same way. You may feel sadness, but you are not destroyed by it. This is because your heart is anchored in Allah, not in people. That anchor keeps you steady even when life shifts around you. Another important benefit of detachment is that it helps you think clearly. When you are overly attached, your emotions can cloud your judgment. You may ignore red flags or accept behavior that harms you. But when you are detached, you see situations more honestly and make better decisions. Detachment strengthens your relationship with Allah. When you stop relying on people for your emotional needs, you turn to Allah more. You make more dua. You seek more guidance, and you find comfort in His remembrance. This connection fills the space that attachment once occupied. It also helps you avoid unnecessary overthinking. When you are attached, you constantly analyze people's words and actions. You wonder why they did something or what they meant. But when you detach, you stop over-analyzing. You accept things as they are and move forward. Detachment does not make you cold or distant. Instead, it allows you to care in a healthier way. You can love people without losing yourself in them. You can support others without sacrificing your own peace. This balance is essential for emotional well-being. Another important aspect is that detachment protects your self-respect. When you are overly attached, you may tolerate behavior that you should not accept. But when you are detached, you value yourself more. You set boundaries and protect your dignity. Detachment also brings freedom. You are no longer controlled by how others treat you. Your mood does not depend on their attention or approval. This independence brings a deep sense of calm and confidence. When you detach, you begin to appreciate people more. Without heavy expectations, you notice the good they bring instead of focusing on what they lack. This creates more positive and peaceful relationships. The believer understands that true attachment should only be to Allah. Everything else in life is temporary. When your heart is attached to Allah, you find a stability that nothing else can provide. Detachment protects your inner peace by freeing your heart from unnecessary emotional weight. When you rely on Allah and not on people, your heart becomes calm, strong, and balanced. This is the kind of peace that stays with you, no matter what changes around you. The less you expect, the more you appreciate. There is a beautiful shift that happens in the heart when expectations begin to decrease. Many people live in a constant cycle of disappointment because they expect too much from others. They expect perfect understanding, consistent attention, and unchanging behavior. But my dear brothers and sisters, when you reduce these expectations, you begin to notice something different. You start to appreciate what people do instead of focusing on what they fail to do. This simple change transforms the way you experience relationships and life itself. When expectations are high, even small shortcomings feel large. Someone may do many good things, but one missed action becomes the focus of your mind. This creates a sense of dissatisfaction. But when expectations are lowered, even small acts of kindness feel meaningful. A simple message, a kind word, or a small effort becomes something you genuinely appreciate. This shift brings warmth to your heart. Appreciation grows naturally when you stop demanding from people. Instead of expecting constant attention or perfection, you begin to see people as they are. You accept their limitations and value their efforts. This creates a healthier emotional environment where gratitude replaces frustration. Another important aspect is that reduced expectations protect your peace. When you do not expect too much, you are not easily hurt. You are not constantly waiting for people to act in a certain way. This freedom removes a lot of emotional pressure and allows your heart to remain calm. The believer understands that appreciation is a form of gratitude. When you appreciate people, you are also recognizing the blessings Allah has placed in your life. This increases your connection with Allah and brings barakah into your relationships. Lower expectations also improve your interactions with others. You become more patient, more understanding, and less critical. This creates stronger and more peaceful relationships because people feel accepted rather than pressured. When you expect less, you also overthink less. You are not constantly analyzing what someone should have done or why they acted differently. This reduces mental stress and brings clarity to your thoughts. Another benefit is that you begin to focus on your own actions. Instead of watching others closely, you reflect on your own behavior and strive to improve yourself. This shift leads to personal growth. Appreciation also strengthens emotional stability. When your happiness is not dependent on people meeting your expectations, you remain calm regardless of their actions. This stability is a sign of inner strength. The less you expect, the more you notice blessings in everyday moments. You begin to find joy in simple things that you may have overlooked before. This creates a more positive and peaceful mindset. This approach also helps you forgive more easily. When you do not expect perfection, you understand that mistakes are part of being human. This understanding softens your heart and removes unnecessary resentment. The less you expect, the more you appreciate. When you adopt this mindset, your heart becomes lighter, your relationships become healthier, and your life becomes more peaceful. The believer who lives with gratitude and balanced expectations finds a calmness that stays with them because their happiness is no longer dependent on others but rooted in their connection with Allah. There is a subtle peace that begins to grow within you when you stop measuring people by what they fail to give and start valuing what they do offer. My dear brothers and sisters, expectations often blind us to the goodness that already exists around us. When you expect too much, you overlook small acts of care, thinking they are not enough. But when you reduce expectations, those same acts become meaningful and appreciated. This shift opens your heart to gratitude and removes the constant feeling of lack. When a person expects less, they begin to see people with more mercy. Instead of focusing on shortcomings, they begin to understand circumstances. Perhaps someone did not respond because they were struggling. Perhaps someone could not give more because they were overwhelmed. This understanding softens your reactions and replaces judgment with compassion, bringing a sense of calmness to your heart. Another beautiful effect of lowering expectations is that it reduces emotional dependency. You are no longer waiting for people to fulfill your needs in order to feel okay. Your peace becomes independent, rooted in your relationship with Allah. This independence allows you to interact with people freely without placing heavy emotional burdens on them. When expectations are reduced, appreciation becomes consistent, not occasional. You no longer appreciate only big gestures, but also small, everyday efforts. A kind tone, a moment of support, or even a presence becomes something valuable. This consistent appreciation fills your life with positivity and reduces feelings of emptiness. It is important to understand that appreciation does not come from having more, but from expecting less. Many people have a lot in their lives but still feel ungrateful because their expectations are too high. When you adjust your expectations, you begin to see that you already have more than you realized. This realization brings contentment. Lowering expectations also protects relationships from unnecessary tension. When you expect too much, you may become easily frustrated or disappointed, which affects how you treat others. But when you expect less, you become more patient and understanding, allowing relationships to grow in a healthy and natural way. The believer learns that people are a means, not the source. When you expect everything from people, you forget that Allah is the one who provides through them. When you shift your expectation to Allah, you begin to appreciate people as part of His mercy, not as the sole providers of your happiness. Another important benefit is that your mood becomes more stable. When expectations are high, your emotions rise and fall based on how people behave. But when expectations are balanced, your emotions remain steady. You are not easily affected by small changes in others. Appreciation also brings humility. When you recognize the efforts of others, you become more aware of your own limitations. This humility strengthens your character and improves your interactions with people. Reducing expectations also encourages you to give more without expecting return. You do good for the sake of Allah, not for recognition or reward from people. This sincerity purifies your intentions and brings greater reward. You begin to enjoy moments more deeply when you are not constantly expecting something more. Life becomes lighter, simpler, and more peaceful. You find joy in what is present instead of chasing what is missing. The less you expect, the more you appreciate. This principle transforms not only your relationships, but also your entire outlook on life. When your heart is filled with gratitude and your expectations are placed with Allah, you experience a calmness and satisfaction that cannot be shaken by people's actions. Relying on Allah brings lasting comfort. There is a subtle peace that begins to grow within you when you stop measuring people by what they fail to give and start valuing what they do offer. My dear brothers and sisters, expectations often blind us to the goodness that already exists around us. When you expect too much, you overlook small acts of care, thinking they are not enough. But when you reduce expectations, those same acts become meaningful and appreciated. This shift opens your heart to gratitude and removes the constant feeling of lack. When a person expects less, they begin to see people with more mercy. Instead of focusing on shortcomings, they begin to understand circumstances. Perhaps someone did not respond because they were struggling. Perhaps someone could not give more because they were overwhelmed. This understanding softens your reactions and replaces judgment with compassion, bringing a sense of calmness to your heart. Another beautiful effect of lowering expectations is that it reduces emotional dependency. You are no longer waiting for people to fulfill your needs in order to feel okay. Your peace becomes independent, rooted in your relationship with Allah. This independence allows you to interact with people freely without placing heavy emotional burdens on them. When expectations are reduced, appreciation becomes consistent, not occasional. You no longer appreciate only big gestures, but also small everyday efforts. A kind tone, a moment of support, or even a presence becomes something valuable. This consistent appreciation fills your life with positivity and reduces feelings of emptiness. It is important to understand that appreciation does not come from having more, but from expecting less. Many people have a lot in their lives, but still feel ungrateful because their expectations are too high. When you adjust your expectations, you begin to see that you already have more than you realized. This realization brings contentment. Lowering expectations also protects relationships from unnecessary tension. When you expect too much, you may become easily frustrated or disappointed, which affects how you treat others. But when you expect less, you become more patient and understanding, allowing relationships to grow in a healthy and natural way. The believer learns that people are a means, not the source. When you expect everything from people, you forget that Allah is the one who provides through them. When you shift your expectation to Allah, you begin to appreciate people as part of His mercy, not as the sole providers of your happiness. Another important benefit is that your mood becomes more stable. When expectations are high, your emotions rise and fall based on how people behave. But when expectations are balanced, your emotions remain steady. You are not easily affected by small changes in others. Appreciation also brings humility. When you recognize the efforts of others, you become more aware of your own limitations. This humility strengthens your character and improves your interactions with people. Reducing expectations also encourages you to give more without expecting return. You do good for the sake of Allah, not for recognition or reward from people. This sincerity purifies your intentions and brings greater reward. You begin to enjoy moments more deeply when you are not constantly expecting something more. Life becomes lighter, simpler, and more peaceful. You find joy in what is present instead of chasing what is missing. The less you expect, the more you appreciate. This principle transforms not only your relationships, but also your entire outlook on life. When your heart is filled with gratitude and your expectations are placed with Allah, you experience a calmness and satisfaction that cannot be shaken by people's actions. There is a unique sense of relief that enters the heart when you truly hand your worries over to Allah. Many people carry burdens they were never meant to carry alone, constantly thinking, planning, and fearing what may happen next. But my dear brothers and sisters, when you rely on Allah, you begin to release that weight. You realize that the one who created your situation is fully capable of guiding you through it. This realization brings a calmness that no worldly solution can fully provide. When reliance on Allah becomes part of your life, you begin to experience a quiet strength. It is not loud or visible, but it is deeply rooted within you. Even when challenges arise, you do not panic the way you used to. Instead, you pause, reflect, and turn to Allah. This inner strength allows you to face difficulties with patience and dignity, knowing that Allah is with you. Another beautiful outcome of relying on Allah